Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me. And thank you all for joining this online session. I'm very excited to tell you about a survey designed and conducted by Ammar Maleki and by myself on Iranian religiosity. And today I will give you a brief description of our data gathering and weighting before going to the main results. But first, why does Iran matter to the sociology of religion and to thinking about Europe, actually? Well, today, when I teach the sociology of religion, I use a textbook. We use textbooks like Grace Davies, which still refer to the 1979 Islamic Revolution as a defining moment, right? The Islamic Revolution is the event that upset secular confidence, leading to calls for abandoning or revising the so-called secularization thesis. Such a narrative can be found in Casanova's work, beginning with public religions in the modern world, where on the very first page, his first example is Islam in Iran. So a religion that contradicted secularist expectations and a religion that went public in the modern world. At the time, he also names the Catholic Church in Poland, liberation theology in Latin America, and Protestant fundamentalism in American politics. These were analyzed by looking at large-scale evidence, but importantly, with the exception of Iran. Over the years, social scientists and humanities scholars have documented the massive political disappointment following the revolution and the Iran-Iraq war using qualitative methods. And their work shows that political disappointment steadily turned into a very deeply felt religious disappointment. And as we will see, Iranians have turned away from institutional religion on an unprecedented scale. Yet many sociologists today still refer to Iran only as an example for criticizing the secularization thesis. And this is where our digital surveys come in. We aim to produce data on politically sensitive topics that is more reliable than telephone surveys. Due to state censorship and very, very severe repression, these are uncharted territories, right? So if you look at the Wikipedia page, something that millions of people look at, religion in Iran, here's the Wikipedia page. It suggests that the true representation of Iranian religiosity is unknown. But it does show a diagram suggesting that of the nearly 80 million Iranians, 99% of them are Muslims. The Pew Research Center also published the 99% Muslims figure in its 2015 Global Religion Report, while a 2012 Pew survey even claimed that over 80% of Iranians favor the imposition of Sharia law. Now, these numbers rely on flawed official data and do not take the ever-present fear people live under into account. In Iran, you cannot just phone people and ask them about sensitive matters, right? So these numbers fail to explain why Iran's supreme leader and other officials persistently warn against the spread of secularism. So last month, a cleric in Qom went so far as to call the coronavirus the secular virus, designed to secularize Iranians. Now, our surveys show that there is, in fact, a social basis for these fears. Even state-sponsored opinion polls show that Iranians increasingly avoid practicing their purported religion. So if you look at a very big city like Tehran, a telephone poll was conducted there, and that really gives an idea of the situation's absurdity. 59% in red to the left, 59% said that they do not fast during Ramadan. When asked why, half of them answered, well, because they are sick. So adding the recent protests that spread across the nation, we are left to wonder how 4 decades of living under the Islamic Republic have really impacted Iranians' religiosity. And qualitative research has, of course, produced very interesting answers, sometimes surprising answers to these questions, but large-scale evidence was lacking. So our religion survey was conducted in June, and it resulted in a sample of over 50,000 respondents who answered 23 questions. The eagerness to participate is unusual, and it's caused by a democratic deficit and very significant societal transformations. So let me show you a few of those. Literacy rates have gone up from less than 40% in 1975 to around 85% today. And the urban population, this is crucial, grew. So in 1975, the urban population was 45%. But today, over 3/4 of the 80 million population live in cities. And these city dwellers are connected to the internet. We have 57 million internet users, 47 million active social media users, and approximately 41 million mobile social media users. These numbers enable communication with large segments of Iranian society online. And because of the unique Iranian context, people have already for years been practicing and using the internet to express themselves in ways that the state does not like them to. Of course, a network effect and self-topical selection can strongly affect online opt-in surveys. So to reduce bias, it was imperative that we gather a diverse sample from groups distributed across Iran. So we designed different images to be shared with the links to attract diverse audiences. A research assistant investigated which groups did not sufficiently participate in our previous surveys, and we then targeted those groups' digital channels, sometimes paying them to advertise our survey. These groups were far too many to name all here, but I can give you a few examples. They included an official channel of a Nobel Peace Prize winner, a Kurdish Sunni minority network, a Sufi Telegram channel, an Arab minority page. Our assistant also infiltrated ultra-conservative pro-regime channels and actually convinced them also to share the survey link on their own pages. Average digital channel followers range between 10 to 100,000 for specific groups to several millions for mass audiences. So we got a lot of support. People helped us to spread the survey. The respondents were men and women of all provinces with basic to higher education. After data cleaning, the target population was weighted using Iran's national census and labor force statistics. And we also checked with external data. Spinnaker Research, which is a company based in Amsterdam that does weighting for the University of Amsterdam also, assisted us to weight for gender, age, educational level, provincial population distribution, urban and rural regional distribution, and crucially, voting behavior. So who voted for whom in the 2017 presidential elections. By including a political variable, we were able to correct the relatively, still there were many, but relatively low number of conservatives who participated. Okay, so now let me show you some of the basic results. Most Iranians believe in God, almost 80%, but 40% only believe in life after death, and only 30% believe in heaven and hell. A quarter of the population say they believe in jinns. However, 20% say they believe in none of these. They don't even believe in God. So what do these people then identify as? Only a third explicitly identified as Shiite Muslims, far less than the state census. 5% as Sunni Muslims, 3% Sufis, another 7% identify more vaguely as spiritual. 22% say they belong to none, while 9% say they're atheists, 6% agnostics, And we also see, curiously, 8% identify as Zoroastrians, which can be interpreted as reflecting Iranian nationalism. And it's more like a desire for an alternative to Islam than those people actually practicing the Zoroastrian faith. Over 1% say they are Christian. Again, a number far higher than official accounts, but one that is in line with the influx of Iranians seeking asylum in Europe and based on conversion narratives. So let's move to answers that show the process of secularization. When asked, how have your religious or non-religious beliefs changed during your lifetime? 47%, that's at the bottom, at the total number, 47% reported to have changed from being religious to non-religious. Now, non-religious here does not mean non-believing. It's mostly a turn away from institutional religion. 6% reported to move from one religious orientation to another one. So, for example, they changed from Islam to, for example, Christianity. And the possibilities for cross-tabulations, of course, are many. I can only show this one example here. So you see, for example, that if we look at age, those between 20 to 30 years old at the top of the screen lost their religion more often than those between 30 and 50 years old. And those between 30 and 50 lost their religion more often than those who were 50 plus. The secularization process becomes clearer if we compare with the fact that over 90% of our respondents say that they hail from families that believe or are also religious, right? 60% say I'm from a believing and practicing religious family, but 47% say that they changed the religion to non-religion or they've lost religiosity in their lifetime. And this is reflected also in the fact that only 60% report, the fact that 60% report that they never perform the Muslim obligatory daily prayers, while around 1/3 of the respondents say they are occasional drinkers in a country that has officially banned alcohol. In comparison, in a comprehensive survey conducted before the Islamic Revolution, over 90% before the revolution said that they pray at least occasionally. All right, so that's a fundamental change. All right, the next one. So very relevant, of course, are the questions we designed to give us clues as to which forms of political secularism would match our population. So when asked about religion and legislation, 68%, that's in red, said that they believe that religious prescriptions should be excluded from legislation, even if the religious hold a parliamentary majority. So our survey also shows that 70% believe that the state should not financially support any religious organizations. And it seems that Iran has a potential for illiberal, even secularist views regarding religious diversity in the public domain. 43% said that none of the different religions should proselytize in public, should not have that right. Well, 41% believe that all religions can manifest, should be able to manifest in public. So in other words, there is very, very little support for a strong establishment of religion in the state, but there's also little support for a weak establishment, such as in the United Kingdom, right? So we might think that these views are unrealistic, but people do hold them, right? So the majority holds views that actually come closer to the American and French national models.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done, so it's fine.
Great, thank you.
So we can also see this secularization process and this preference for almost secularist, let's say, attitudes in the questions on religious education, right? Most people, 56%, are against the mandatory religious education that exists now in Iran. And on the hijab, 70% are against the mandatory hijab. They oppose the mandatory hijab. All right, so I will round off now. For anyone who is familiar with the Iranian context, these are not surprising numbers actually, but it's very important to demonstrate them with facts as much as possible in an authoritarian context, because the implications are far-reaching politically and academically. The results show tectonic shifts in Iranian society towards secularization, which does not lead to the full disappearance of religion, of course, but it also produces new and diverse forms of religiosity. The majority believes in God, but sees itself as becoming less religious and less interested in institutional religion. Or as Grace Davy puts it, the shift is decidedly towards believing without belonging. So 4 decades after the Islamic Revolution and waves of protests and crackdowns, the demand for the separation of state and mosque is growing louder and louder. So finally, why does this matter to us? In my presentation, combined as I said, these are strongly concentrated in the cities, these views. And my presentation combined that with the virtual. Now, when we consider these facts and the secularization process as Europeans who do sociology of religion, this is very important for our self-reflection, because it shows that, conceiving of Europe as the universal model didn't work, but Europe is also not the exception. Europe is part of a globally entangled world of cities and virtual networks that promote all kinds of secular and religious dynamics. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time. Look forward to your questions.